Hello, Yakri here with another artifact video. So I wanted to do this video because I kind of got a sort of rude reminder of the fact that, there are certain things that you get used to with a lot of experience, and you forget that they weren't obvious to everyone right from the get-go. And in this video, I want to talk about the skill of reading cards rules text. It's not a very difficult skill to pick up, but I feel like if you don't make an effort to learn it, it can confuse some people. So I would highly recommend you do, and I'm gonna talk to you about it. So this new card was released recently. Lich actually is the new card that was released, but this is his signature spell, Chain Frost. And I noticed on the subreddit that some people were confused by the rules text of Chain Frost, which confused me myself initially because it seemed very obvious to me. And after a bit of discussion in there, I realized that it's surprisingly non-obvious, and I made me think back to my days of learning Magic, and yeah, there was definitely a period, I think, when I had the same kind of issues. But yet we have to realize about card rules text in card games is that there's sort of a rule of thumb that what the card rules text says goes unequivocally, unless, asterisk, there's been errata. And errata is usually because the card rules text was fucked up, right? The developers fucked it up. And in a digital game, there's another issue, which is that perhaps the rules text is correct, but there is a bug in terms of programming. These situations are kind of rare, but it can happen. But excluding the developers actually making a mistake, the card rules text is going to do exactly what it says. So for this card, what it says is it's going to deal you're going to pick a target, and it will deal 3 damage to that target. And then it will repeat this effect multiple times, right? That's what repeat 7 times says. It means right there. So technically they could just stop there. I mean, but that would be picking the same target over again. And it makes an addendum. Deal 3 damage to a random unit to the left or right of that target, right? So it picks a new target the left or right randomly and deals damage to that target, and then it repeats that, which is to say that it picks a new target to the left or right of the current target and deals damage to that new target. Now there's 2 parts of this that people are having trouble with. One is to the left or right. So this is probably the most obvious, like, teachable moment here. What does to the left or right mean? It means any card to the left or right. It doesn't matter if there are 10,000 creeps on the board to the left of your initial target. Any of them is an option. In fact, this means that any other card on your opponent's board besides your initial target is a valid target. I think there was at least one person who was wondering if it would deal damage to the same target repeatedly. Of course not. Are you to the left or right of yourself? No. Is your initial target to the left or right of itself? Of course not. So in the situation where there's only one target, you'll deal 3 damage and that's it. The spell stops. In the event that there are 2 targets, what will happen? Well, the spell will bounce back and forth between them until it runs out of charges, or one of the targets dies. And so if it's on the target and it kills the target, it should select a new target, deal 3 damage to them, and then stop. And that's how the spell is going to work. So the other thing that's kind of a little unintuitive is people are thinking like, well, is it going to just keep selecting random targets other than the original, right? Is that what it's going to do? Or is it going to actually go and then go again to a new target? And it is going to go to a new target, and then it's going to go again to another target. How do I know this? Well, it's a little less intuitive. This is probably the one issue I would say with the phrasing where it's not totally clear. Well, it's difficult to understand. It is clear. The difficult to understand versus clarity, meaning that it means literally what it says, but what it literally says is difficult to parse out because they're using legalese-like language in order to make sure that the card text says literally what it's going to do. Okay, and that's where the difficulty in reading these card text rules comes in. In Magic the Gathering and other card games and in Artifact, it's going to be difficult because there's a limited amount of space on these cards, and they need to take like what could be like a paragraph of information and compact it down into like 1 to 2 sentences of information, and that means this sort of legalese. So what repeats here is that it's going to deal 3 damage to a random unit, right? Well, that means it's targeting that random unit, right? To its being the current target, right? It's kind of like I wish everyone was a programmer, because I could say it's kind of like using this in programming, right? It's the object you are currently at, right? So its is the current target, but when you choose a new target, a random unit, that's a new target for this spell, then its is going to be hit again. And its now means that new random target, left or right. And so it's going to go from the main target to a secondary target and then to a new target, including the main target as a random option, right? Okay, so let me give you a little demonstrative example, but that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of the video, right? Cards rule text mean exactly what they say, all right? They mean exactly what they say. And as long as the developers have not fucked up, you can figure out exactly what a card is going to do by reading the rules text. There are there's somewhat of a caveat in the sense that rules text may use conventions or keywords that are specific to the game. And in that case, you need to know what those keywords or conventions are in order to interpret the text. Okay, so here's how it goes. You pick a target. You say this guy, right? You pick this guy as your initial target. He takes 3 damage. All right, and now where's it going to go? It's going to go to any of these possible targets, here, here, or here. I'm using the squares with circles in them to denote spaces where a creature is a unit of some type, and these are empty squares. Okay, so you see this great artistic skill here. Yeah. Anyway, so it can go to any of these targets. So it randomly chooses a target. Let's say it goes over here, right? So this is where the spell is at now, and this guy takes -3 health, right? And now it's going to choose a new random target out of this guy, or this guy, right? And so maybe it goes back to here. Okay, this is possible. And this guy takes -3 HP. Okay? And then it goes over here, right? -3. So this is like an example of what could happen. So you can skip over gaps because it says left or right. It doesn't say up to 2 squares left or right. It doesn't say left or right neighbors. It means exactly what it says. Any left or right card. Okay? A random unit to its left or right. That's all the units to the left or right. Okay? So yeah, just if you're reading a card text and you're not sure what it does, just remember that it's the goal of the designer when they wrote this card text was to write out literally what the card does and exactly what it does. And so read through it and think about it. You can almost definitely figure it out. I guarantee you, almost like 99% of the time, maybe 90% of the time. The exception is, of course, if the battle cards, right? Berserker's Call. It's not clear what Berserker's Call does because for us to understand what Berserker's Call does, right, we can't just read the card text. It says a red hero you control, I think it specifies a red hero, battles its enemy neighbors. Okay, so we know what enemy neighbors are, right? First of all, you need to know what enemy neighbors are. That's an artifact term. It means the card directly in front of them, and then the 2 cards adjacent that. So it battles up to those 3 cards. Okay, so once we know enemy neighbors, now we know a little bit about what the card does. But what the fuck does battles mean? Right? You have to know exactly what battles mean. So there's got to be a definition of what battles means. And basically what you do then is you take the literal meaning of the words used in the rules text for Berserker's Call and the rules text for neighbors and the rules text for battles, and that should give you a perfect map of what will happen in any given scenario involving these cards, as long as the developers did not make a mistake when writing the text. Okay? So there you go. There's your tutorial to reading cards rules text. It takes a little time to get used to, but I promise you'll get over it faster than you think, especially if you take the time to think about it. Like with a lot of problems in life, you do have to sort of make the choice to challenge yourself and use your brain a bit and consider the problem. Or you can brush it off and just ask someone else, but you'll never get better at it that way, and it won't take very long for you to figure this out on your own. So thank you all for watching. If you like this content, you want to see more like it, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's all for now. Yakri out.